Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page International. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Judge Cannon, in the documents case in Florida, denied Special Counsel Jack Smith's request to set up a facility in Washington. And Senator Ted Cruz is stepping up for Robert Kennedy Jr. after the DHS failed to provide Kennedy with protection even after numerous threats. A resolution to stop the fighting in Gaza in order for supplies to be provided was vetoed by the U.S. as a core member of the UN Security Council. The resolution failed to consider Israel's right to defend itself. This didn't stop the Capitol Police from arresting protesters at the Capitol who entered congressional buildings in an attempt to make their support for Hamas heard. The U.S. did sanction Hamas leaders and those associated with the global fundraising efforts that support the terrorist acts. Meanwhile, Putin and Xi Jinping quietly met to apparently discuss their plans to build a new form of world order that is more effective than the similar approaches built in the West. Okay, let's get into it. U.S. District Judge Aileen Cannon, who handles the classified documents case in Florida, rejected Special Counsel Jack Smith's request to set up a private facility in Washington, D.C. Jack Smith asked for the facility in order to hold classified documents that he must provide to the defendants. Judge Cannon's order says the parties are advised that production of classified discovery to defense counsel is deemed timely upon placement in an accredited facility in the Southern District of Florida, not to another federal district. It is the responsibility of the Office of the Special Counsel to make and carry out arrangements to deposit such discovery to defense counsel in this district. Judge Cannon has been very strict about jurisdiction in this case. This is after Jack Smith revealed that a grand jury in Washington, D.C. was still meeting even after the case was assigned to Cannon's court in Florida. It is illegal to use a grand jury to produce additional information after a defendant has already been indicted. President Trump's legal team pointed out that the small temporary Florida location makes it difficult for President Trump to access classified documents since he is also attending a civil trial in New York. President Trump's attorneys also filed a motion accusing the special counsel's office of not turning over relevant evidence, so they asked the court to push back the trial date. However, Smith responded in a filing saying that there was no credible reason to postpone the case and that they already had access to considerable amounts of the material. President Trump's team are requesting a mid-November 2024 trial date or later. They hope to postpone the case until after the presidential election. On Monday, Senator Ted Cruz sent a letter to Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. In the letter, Cruz questioned why the agency has not yet provided protection to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a 2024 presidential candidate. Cruz wrote that on July 21st, 2023, you made the executive decision to deny Secret Service protection to Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. after 88 days of failing to respond to his either formal request for protection or the follow-ups by his campaign. Kennedy has been threatened in many ways so far. In a letter sent to the hotel where Kennedy announced his presidential run, an individual said he wanted to discuss their sins with Kennedy. The individual also said that a madman may commit a serious terrorist act. Another individual who regularly sends Kennedy threatening emails stated that he will bury Kennedy and that everyone will die and that he will make Kennedy suffer. Cruz also cited an incident in September when an armed man impersonating a U.S. Marshal was arrested at one of Kennedy's events in Los Angeles. And then 2 weeks after the Los Angeles incident, Judicial Watch, which is a government accountability organization, obtained 11 pages of the Secret Service records. The records detailed saying that Kennedy's protection request was denied. The report stated that Kennedy is likely at risk of assassination for no other reason than the mere fact that he is a Kennedy. The Secret Service claimed that the threats were because Kennedy received increased media attention for accusing the CIA of assassinating his uncle, President John F. Kennedy. The Secret Service also claimed that the threats were because Kennedy advocated for the release of the person who was imprisoned for assassinating his father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy. In his letter, Ted Cruz asked the DHS to explain its exceptionally delayed action and its inexplicable refusal to provide security to Kennedy despite the extraordinary threats that he faces. Cruz gave the agency until October 31st to respond. A large group of protesters who were demanding an Israel ceasefire entered the Cannon House office building on October 18th, which resulted in several arrests. The U.S. Capitol Police posted on X saying, "Demonstrations are not allowed inside congressional buildings. We warned the protesters to stop demonstrating, and when they did not comply, we began arresting them." Protesters gathered outside the Capitol around midday, and they demanded that Congress do something to end the fighting between Israel and Hamas. Videos taken inside the Cannon building on Capitol Hill show protesters chanting, "Ceasefire now." While the number of arrests is currently unknown, Capitol Police announced on X that roads would be closed and investigations would continue. In addition to the arrests made inside the building, officials stated that 3 people have also been arrested and charged with assault of a police officer during their arrest processing. Outside the Capitol, a massive crowd gathered to support those getting arrested on the inside. The exact number of protesters remains undetermined, but it has been reported that over 10,000 individuals are currently demonstrating outside the Capitol building. Additionally, an estimated 500 protesters gained access to the building interior. Fox News correspondent Chad Pergram posted a photo of Republican Representative Brandon Williams of New York standing silently with an Israeli flag as the pro-Palestinian protest played out. Before the protesters entered the Capitol, Representatives Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush addressed the protesters. They urged Joe Biden to work on an immediate ceasefire by Israel. On Wednesday, the United States vetoed a United Nations Security Council resolution. The resolution would have called for humanitarian pauses, intending to allow life-saving supplies to flow into the Gaza Strip. Israel has vowed to take out Hamas from the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs claimed that Hamas was ready to release all of the hostages that are being held captive in the Gaza Strip if Israel agrees to end its airstrike operation. In a vote that was sponsored by the Brazilian delegation, 12 of the 15 UN Security Council members agreed to the resolution to allow supplies into Gaza. However, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, was the only council member who voted against the measure. Russia and the United Kingdom withdrew from the vote. The United States, China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom are the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council. Each has veto power over any resolution that is brought to the 15-member body. Therefore, Greenfield's no vote effectively stopped the pause in fighting to allow supplies into Gaza. Greenfield explained her vote by saying that the resolution text failed to clearly affirm Israel's self-defense right, so the Council should not get in the way of Israel's right to continue their offensive on Hamas. Greenfield noted that, like every nation in the world, Israel has the inherent right of self-defense as reflected in Article 51 of the UN Charter. Following previous terrorist attacks by groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS, this council reaffirmed that right. This text should have done the same. Wednesday's vote marks the second time this week that Greenfield has vetoed a humanitarian resolution. On Monday, the Russian representatives brought their own resolution for a humanitarian ceasefire. However, that resolution only received support from China, Gabon, Mozambique, and the United Arab Emirates. Representatives from France, the United Kingdom, and Japan joined Greenfield in opposing the resolution. Greenfield argued that the absence of a clear condemnation of Hamas in Russia's resolution dishonors victims of Hamas's attacks on Israel. After opposing two separate humanitarian resolutions regarding the Israeli-Hamas conflict, Joe Biden said that he discussed the humanitarian concerns in Gaza with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during his trip to Israel. Biden announced that Israel agreed that humanitarian assistance can begin to move from Egypt to Gaza. Biden also said that he was working with the Egyptian government as well as various United Nations relief agencies in order to support humanitarian efforts in Gaza. The United States will provide more than $100 million in humanitarian assistance for Gaza and the West Bank. In a separate statement, Netanyahu confirmed that Egypt could send humanitarian aid to Gaza. Netanyahu also said that any humanitarian aid to Hamas will be prevented. He also affirmed that no humanitarian aid may flow from the Israeli side into Gaza until the hostages held by Hamas are released. The United States on Wednesday announced sanctions on 10 key Hamas leaders and those affiliated with the Palestinian Islamic group's global fundraising network. These new financial sanctions are aimed at tracking and seizing Hamas-related assets that extend to Gaza, Sudan, Turkey, Algeria, and Qatar. A Qatar-based financial facilitator with close ties to the Iranian regime, as well as a Hamas commander, have been sanctioned by the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Asset Control. The Gaza-based platform that provides money transfers and virtual currency exchange services, which is called Buy Cash, was also sanctioned for its alleged connection to the terrorist group's fundraising. The declaration of sanctions comes after a bipartisan group of lawmakers issued a letter on Tuesday. The letter requested that the Biden administration explain how cryptocurrency contributed to the financing of the Hamas's sudden attacks on Israel. The U.S. government confirmed that Iran allocates a significant amount of funds, approximately $100 million per year, to support Hamas. According to the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Qatar also provides the Iranian-backed faction Hamas with some $120 million per year. Besides financial contributions, Turkey, Malaysia, Algeria, and Kuwait reportedly assist Hamas through military, diplomatic, and political means. Hamas also allegedly receives financial support via social welfare charities. Donations are also sought openly on social media. In 2019, an individual from New Jersey was indicted for providing financial support to Hamas and for threatening pro-Israel demonstrators. According to the U.S. Department of Justice, the man donated via MoneyGram to an individual in Gaza whom he believed to be affiliated with the Hamas faction. On Wednesday, the Biden administration also confirmed that it would maintain restrictions on Israel's ballistic missile and drone pursuits. The new sanctions come as the United Nations restrictions on Iran's missile-related activities under a United Nations Security Council are set to expire. The United States imposed sanctions on a number of individuals and enterprises from Iran, China, and Hong Kong to Venezuela. One cargo vessel, 11 individuals, and 8 entities were sanctioned. Among the sanctioned are Iran-based equipment firms and their directors, Hong Kong-based tech companies, Chinese nationals, Iranian defense minister officials, and the nation's defense attaché in Venezuela. Meanwhile, in Australia, Foreign Minister Penny Wong said that Iran's proliferation of ballistic and cruise missiles raises tensions in an already volatile region. Wong noted by saying, "The Albanese government is working deliberately and strategically to apply pressure on the Iranian regime for failing to uphold its international obligations, including its nuclear-related commitments." Iran has escalated tensions with claiming that time is running out for Israel after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza. However, Israel provided images, videos, and intercepted phone calls proving that the deadly explosion at the Gaza hospital was caused by the Islamic Jihad, not by Israel. Wong called on Iran to cease its escalating actions in its nuclear program and to recommit to full compliance with its nuclear-related commitments. This includes reversing all of the steps they have taken away from the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. This plan of action allows the International Atomic Energy Agency to verify Iran's peaceful nuclear technology use. The new restrictions will be listed as part of Australia's autonomous sanctions framework. On October 18th, Xi Jinping quietly met with Vladimir Putin. They referred to each other as old and dear friends, and they hailed deepened political mutual trust. Putin also praised Xi Jinping's Belt and Road Initiative for its supposed role in promoting a fairer, multipolar world, a new world order. The 3-hour meeting covered various issues from the economy to political engagement. Notably, Putin stressed that about an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours of the meeting was spent on very confidential issues. Putin didn't provide details on what they discussed, but Putin called it a very productive and substantial meeting. Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, 2022. This was just 3 weeks after Xi Jinping and Putin declared no limits to their partnership during the Beijing Winter Olympics. Since then, Xi has refused to label Moscow's actions as an invasion. The CCP has expanded its trade with Russia, and it has provided Russia with a vital lifeline after Russia was hit by Western sanctions. Putin told Xi at the beginning of the meeting that the trade turnover between the two powers had surpassed $200 billion. Putin emphasized that close foreign policy coordination is especially required due to what he called the current difficult conditions. Xi also noted that they had met 42 times over the past decade, and they developed a good working relationship and a profound friendship. Xi stressed that the two countries' political mutual trust is deepening. Xi reaffirmed that the CCP support for Russia will safeguard Russia's national sovereignty, security, and development interests. Putin, in turn, backed the CCP's territorial claims for Taiwan. Indeed, the messages given by Xi and Putin aren't surprising. Cheng Chin-mo, an expert in Russia and international relations at Taiwan's Tam Kang University, claimed that the statements made by both leaders send a clear message that a new axis of evil has formed. This new axis, which includes Russia, the Chinese Communist Party, North Korea, and Iran, intend to undermine the Western alliance. Cheng warned that, in other words, the new Cold War has essentially emerged. In fact, experts have long warned about the CCP's goal of establishing a new world order. In 2020, Nadege Roland, a senior fellow at the National Bureau of Asian Research, argued that the Belt and Road Initiative is the backbone of the New World Order that the CCP wants to establish. Roland stated that the Belt and Road Initiative not only draws the notional map of China's desired sphere of influence, but it also serves as a test bed for the subsystem envisioned by the Chinese leadership, in which China is at the center of a new economic and political order, and it exerts increasing leverage over dependent countries. China and Russia began cooperating under the Belt and Road Initiative in 2014. Dr. Vladislav Belov, a deputy director at the Russian Academy of Science, believes that the Belt and Road Initiative is in tune with the Russia-dominated Eurasian Economic Union, which is an alliance of former Soviet nations. In fact, Belov claimed that the pairing of these projects suggests that Moscow and Beijing are building new forms of world order that are more effective than the similar approaches in the West. Rabbi Ariah Lightstone, a former senior advisor for the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, also suggested that the world is reshuffling global power dynamics. Lightstone noted, "We're seeing America being incredibly weak on the world stage, and we're seeing others take advantage of it. Just 3 years ago, Iran was on the ropes, economically incapable of managing their own country's affairs and certainly not meddling meaningfully in other countries' affairs." Lightstone warned that the evil in the world is taking advantage of a weak United States. Okay, that's our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.